Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I have a terrific guest with me today. Boy, he's going to blow your mind about fitness and nutrition. So his name is Pape. He is a certified nutrition coach, a physique engineer, and the voice behind the popular podcast called Wits Weights, a top 25 nutrition podcast which is transforming lives one episode at a time. His podcast is for skeptics of the fitness industry who want to live longer through strength training and sustainable nutrition. Philip is also a lifestyle coach for high-performing professionals. He is a husband, father, and tech junkie who is a late bloomer to the fitness game after spending years struggling with diets and exercise. Now he helps others do more with less while smashing through plateaus, fueling their performance, and revealing the body they've always dreamed of. Philip, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Cheryl, it is a pleasure to be back. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again. So I just want the listeners to know that I had the honor of being a guest on your show just last week. And it was a wonderful conversation. I had such a good time with you. You were a fantastic host. And I was just so looking forward to this. It was like that week took so long before.
Yeah, exactly. And I just said I'll be back as if I was on your show. It just like kind of all blends together.
Well, this is basically the third time we've had a conversation because I think the first one was by phone. I don't really remember.
Yeah, I know. We're like good friends by now.
Exactly. We're very simpatico. We got a lot in common. So basically, why don't you tell us your story of how you got into the fitness industry and how you were a late bloomer to the industry? Because at the age of 40, most people think, well, you wouldn't be starting like a fitness career at 40.
Yeah. And I guess that's part of what we have in common, right? Is the later in life finding these exciting things. It's interesting because growing up, I was not into fitness. I was not into athletics. I played outside, but I had the typical American childhood where, eating not the best food. I was very picky. My family had a history of being overweight, of diabetes, of heart disease, and all these things. And I guess I assumed I had a genetic lot in life that would just lead me down the same path. And throughout my 20s, I did want to improve my fitness. I wanted to, look good, feel good like we all do. I was on the dating scene, single guy and all that, but I didn't really know how. I didn't know what would work. And I did a lot of the conventional things we all do, diets, right? Lots of restrictive diets, lots of cardio, lots of running. I did CrossFit for 8 years, all the diets, even Slim Fast back in the day. I mean, we're talking, I'm dating myself, right?
Oh, please.
Yeah.
I remember Slim Fast.
Exactly. So, Atkins and keto and all that. And I was never quite happy with the results, but I also didn't necessarily think I could, look like that guy in the magazine or look like whatever, kind of dream outcome you envision in your head. Fortunately, I married my wife in 2006. We've been together almost 20 years and she accepted me for who I was. She loved me, and at the end of the day, that's what matters is who we are as people. And as our first child was about to be born, I was turning around 30 at that time. That's when I got into CrossFit because that was the first like aha moment of I'm getting a little bit older. I'm starting to show, right? I'm not feeling as spry as I did when I was younger. Life is catching up to me and I need to do something. So I think everybody goes to activity first, like just moving. We're always told get up and move. That's how you lose weight. That's how you get in shape. And CrossFit was all the craze. It was like at its peak around that time, 2010 timeframe. And what I always tell people about this is it's kind of a love-hate thing. I love that I joined CrossFit for all that it taught me, that I still have with me to today, like using barbells and working really hard and how to, condition yourself and working with coaches and communities and all of those things. I had a lot of fun, but after all those years of going 3, 4, 5 days to the gym, it wasn't really showing. I had like my resting heart rate was lower, I was a little bit fitter in that sense. But I couldn't keep the weight off and I couldn't get the physique I wanted. And for me, that was just like the dad bod. I kind of joke about it all the time, right? It's the typical, well, all my friends look like that. It's cool. It's just, how it's supposed to be. And it wasn't until then my second child, no, not my second child. What am I saying? It wasn't until around, I was turning 40. So this is not about my kids anymore. This is about me and my kids and my wife, and just like the crucible moment you get when you're facing down reality of the decades to come. And so I was about to turn 40, late 2019. And at that point, I discovered strength training, which is different than CrossFit. So I want people to know, sometimes you go to CrossFit and boot camps and things, and you pick up a barbell and you do some lifts, but it's not the same as progressing over time and getting stronger to build muscle. And there's some principles there we can get into. But I started to do that. I started to get results. I started to eat a lot more to fuel that. And COVID hit, right? 2020 happened literally months later.
Boom. Yeah.
Okay. Months later, the gym shut down and I didn't have any equipment at home. I had like a couple dumbbells and a band. So I hustled to build a home gym over the next few months, which was very hard with the supply chain and with the situation at the time. But as I did that, I started to dive into the world of evidence-based fitness. And that's what I'm all about today. When you use the term physique engineer, I come from an engineering background myself, a software engineer. And so I love the idea of taking a machine and being able to kind of tweak the inputs and get the outputs you want, right? And if our bodies can be controlled in that way, we would have a lot more confidence, a lot more certainty in the outcome, right? And I didn't believe that was possible until I went down this route of evidence-based fitness, where I started to learn about how to eat, how to fuel, what kind of macros to use, how to lift the right way. And I discovered myth bust after myth bust as I went through that process. And so when I go on these podcasts, that's some of the things I like to get into are what are the things that everybody listening thinks is true, and can we challenge that to see what actually works? And then people can go home with that aha moment to say, okay, let me put that into action, because now I know I can get the result.
Excellent. Okay. So now I want to just make I have a question, because I want you to describe going to CrossFit. You said like what, 5 days a week?
Yeah, it varied 3 to 5 days a week. Consistency was an issue too.
But still, okay. How frustrating was that?
It is.
When you worked your butt off, you're trying so hard and you're not seeing any results.
Yeah, it's extreme. It makes you feel like no matter how hard you're working, no matter how much action you take, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. I mean, how discouraging.
That's how you feel. Yeah.
Why bother?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the transformation I want people to go through in their head when they take, number one, what this thing that they really want, they desperately want. Most people want to look good, feel good. They want to be a role model for their kids. They want to be able to provide for their family and protect them. And then they say, okay, now I'm going to take steps to do that. Step 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be very consistent. I'm a hustler in my career. I'm solid with my relationships. Everything I do gets me the success in life, except in fitness. So you start doing these things, you don't get the result, and you fail to close the feedback loop. You fail to reinforce that the dream outcome you want is supported by the things you're doing. So if we can fix that middle piece of the how to get there, the action then takes care of itself, because you get the result.
And let's talk about that mental head smacking moment, that turning 30, because I had a really hard time with 30 myself. But my realization came when I actually turned 40. And, I just finished physical therapy school. I was overweight. I was out of shape. And I was trying to make some changes and nothing was happening. Absolutely nothing. And I thought, well, this is okay. This is the way it is. I just gained, like 3 or 4 pounds in the past year. And then I calculated, oh my God, looking forward to the rest of my life, if I keep gaining 3 pounds a year. And I did the math, and I'm not very good at math, but I figured that one out pretty quickly. And I thought, I really do need to make a change. And that's when I had my, okay, let's turn this ship around and see what we could do. But I didn't do it quite as scientifically as you did. But at least I got the results that I wanted. So, I mean, congratulations to you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I was surprised myself. let's just put it that way. And people always ask me like, what was the aha moment? And it's not one thing. Like this is so important. And one of those lessons in life you learn, if you've got to do a lot of different things and experiment with yourself and keep changing and keep going back and rewriting the thing that you're trying to do, because if that's not working and you've gone weeks or months and it's not working, it's not going to work. Like that thing is not going to work. Generally, I mean, we're talking in the short term with your body.
Right.
So when I started to lift weights the quote unquote right way and actually get stronger and stronger and stronger and start to build muscle. And like, I remember laying in my bed next to my wife and looking at my arm thinking, what, that doesn't look like my arm. Like there's actually some muscle definition, you know, little things like that, that kind of chip away at your confidence or boost it. I started to realize things were supporting the process. Now, here's the cool thing, Cheryl, is when I work with my clients, we start with the idea of strength and performance. Everyone's an athlete. Everyone listening can be an athlete. We start there because then what happens is if you can unlock the progress with your strength, with your muscle, it then causes all your other decisions to support that. How you eat, how much you eat, how you sleep, how you manage stress, not necessarily in a deliberate way, but almost in a momentum sort of way. Like you can't help it. Right. And all of a sudden a restrictive diet or cutting foods out is no longer an option. Right. Because now you're trying to actually get a PR in your squat or whatever it is. And having a restrictive diet is not an option. And so we go through this mental transformation first, and then the physical transformation gets a lot easier after that.
Well, talk about the mental transformation. Just looking at that arm and seeing those muscles starting to the definition and starting to pop, that has got to be incredibly motivating. Once you see that, it's like, all right, I'm all in.
Yeah, there's nothing faster as a result you can get than a physical transformation from something like this. You can get results in as little as 2 to 3 weeks when you start to get those little quick wins. And oftentimes not oftentimes, almost all the time, it happens without the weight on the scale changing. And that's really important for people, especially women who are listening, that you don't need the scale to drop to start to get leaner, fitter, be happier with your physique, you know, drop some pant sizes, however physical manifestation that is, that gets you the ultimate thing you want, which is just to feel great in your skin and like the person you really are.
You illustrate this very beautifully on your Facebook page. So I really encourage the listeners to go there because it was I think there's a video. I don't know if it was your dog or not, or something, a random video that you pulled up, but it was a dog like hopping on the scale and almost like attacking it and biting it and stuff. So it's like, don't pay no attention to the number on the scale.
Yeah, the scale is got it's a loaded topic. It's a loaded topic because in the fitness industry, we always have camps. We have camps. And usually if it's an extreme, the truth is actually somewhere in the middle, right? And the same thing with scale weight is that you have the camps that say, like it's all about weight loss, right? Which is, I think, a very insidious part of the fitness industry. I think I have an episode coming out called Fat Loss versus Weight Loss, just to kind of make that clear difference. Very insidious because it's this one metric that really doesn't represent much of anything other than overall body mass, which is made of not just fat, but also muscle, right? And so when you lose weight, you're potentially losing muscle if you're not doing it right. So that's one camp. The other camp is the scale doesn't mean anything at all, and we should just ignore it completely. Well, I'm in the middle. I say, look, the scale is a data point, like many data points. And when you combine it, and here's my engineering hat, here's the physique engineering. When you combine it with body measurements, how you feel, your biofeedback, you know, sleep, stress, hunger, the mental and emotional side of it, and your training progress, when you combine them all, then you get the true picture. And that's where the weight on the scale may need to go down as a metric, but it's combined with other things that tell you you're doing it in the healthiest way possible.
Sometimes I even noticed in my own experience was I could feel my clothes fitting differently before I noticed anything on the scale. And I've had a lot of other friends and clients tell me the same thing. They could just feel that change rather than looking for that external verification of what does that number on the scale say.
For sure. Yeah. I just did a training yesterday on body recomposition in my Facebook group. And we talked about 4 scenarios where people can build muscle and lose fat at the same time. And the most common scenario, that's most common because most people are in that situation, most people listening, is the person who just started lifting. And I want to be clear, that means lifting properly. Maybe you've been going to the gym for years, like I did at CrossFit, but wasn't lifting properly. Or you're getting back to it after years of, not training. Or maybe you're a runner, but now you're going to start being a lifter, right? All those people are newer lifters, and your body can respond really well to that load from the lifting, that resistance on your body to build muscle. So that signal's really high, so high that you could basically eat at your maintenance calories, keep the same weight, and the muscle gain is going to be so high that it draws on your fat reserves to kind of make up for the lack of energy to build that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just such a priority now to your body. It's the hormonal response, everything gets jacked up. And so you end up, like you said, the clothes start to get, they feel better. The weight starts to come down.
Mm-hmm.
The sleep improves. I've seen hormonal profiles improve, especially women who are like perimenopausal or postmenopausal, where the DHEA, testosterone, progesterone, all that all of a sudden starts to regulate where it needs to be because you're lifting weights. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Mm-hmm. That is crazy. But one thing I really want you to focus on or talk about again, that you said, as long as you're doing it right. So there's a lot to be said for proper technique. And it drives me crazy when I see people who are lifting weights that are either too heavy for them to begin with. I mean, you have to have a starting point. And I think especially for women, and especially for women in my age group, if you start out with too many weights and you don't know what you're doing, you are just asking for, a shoulder dysfunction, all kind of injuries, low back, hip, neck, everything. So talk about the proper technique. And I'm thinking that, to me, in my own mind, this proper technique is kind of feeding right into that physique engineer kind of head that you have.
Yes. I mean, it starts from, what is your goal here? If your goal is to improve your physique, to improve your body composition, which, by the way, also improves your health and longevity, because carrying more muscle mass counteracts what happens with aging, which is that we lose muscle. We lose 3 to 8% of our muscle per decade after the age of 40. And strength training will not only reverse that, or not only stop it, it'll reverse it, right? So that there's an aspect of health to that. Building muscle also burns more calories. So if you want to lose fat, it actually makes it easier. So you've got to say that that's my goal, as opposed to, I'm going to run ultra marathons, or I just want to live till I'm 110, but I want to do it on a calorie restricted diet or something like that. So if your goal is body composition, there's some basic principles to building muscle that are more efficient than others. That's what I like, efficiency. I don't know about you. I'm lazy. I want things to take as little time in the gym and give me results as fast as I can.
Exactly.
So that's what I want. And I want to do it in an abundant way, like in a way that fuels my body, that gives me energy, that doesn't make me feel like I'm starving, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So some basic principles. The real big one that everyone misses is progressive overload, right? Mm-hmm. This is the idea of whatever you start with. Like you said, you might start with body weight, bands, a suspension system, right? You might start with dumbbells, or you might start with barbells, and they're all okay. And they can all be done at any age, meaning you could be 75 and start with a barbell. You're just going to start with like 15-pound barbell with no weights on it, right? Mm-hmm. So, you're going to start with that. And the very simple example of this is, let's say you do a squat and you do 3 sets of whatever, let's say 5 reps. Mm-hmm. Next time you come in, 3 sets of 5 pounds heavier. Next time you come in, 3 sets of 5 pounds heavier. Now, what does this do? A few things. First, a lot of people aren't even doing the same movements day to day. They do these YouTube programs, or they follow some random program where it's just every time they go in the gym, it's a bunch of different exercises, which reminds me a lot of CrossFit. It was very random. Well, you can't progress and you can't truly build strength unless you're doing some of the same movements over and over again. It's a skill as well as a strength builder. The second thing is, people aren't doing it frequently enough. So men and women, when they're brand new, you can squat 3 days a week. You could deadlift 3 days a week. You can press 3 days a week. But if you're only doing it once a week, it's going to really draw out the time that it takes you to progress. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing is just training hard. And so if you keep it simple and just do X number of sets, X number of reps, and just do a fixed amount of reps, not all this fancy rep range stuff, and then you just go up and weight each week, guess what? It's going to start feeling pretty hard at some point. So like you said, even though you start light and you focus on technique and get that down early, working with a coach or trainer, hopefully, or a community online that can give you feedback, you then will start to progress. And after about a month or 2, I would say, for most people, if you've been squatting 3 days a week, now you've how many is that? 4 times 3, that's 12 times you've had to increase the weight. Watch out how much stronger you get, Cheryl, right? As opposed to if you've been going to the gym for 10 years, doing the pink dumbbells, and I'm not being disparaging. This is just to get the visual out there.
Got it. Doing
the pink dumbbells and doing sets of 10, and that's it. And like, you do the same weight, same reps for years on years. That's why you're not making progress. So that's the main, if you do that one thing, everything else is going to start to fall in line. You're going to start caring about the food and the sleep and the recovery and all the other stuff.
So basically, don't try and do it on your own. And I'm a huge proponent of that. If you're trying to get into shape and you haven't really worked out before, or you really don't know what you're doing, but you're watching a few videos here and there and you think I'm going to save some money and I'm just going to wing it and try it on your own, that's really not the best idea, because not only are you not going to make progress, but there's a really good possibility you can hurt yourself.
100%. I mean, this is a skill for life.
Mhm.
It's a skill that's going to pay out for life. But if you have bad form, you can definitely get, tendonitis at best, or other things at worst. We don't have to go now, not to scare people, because when you get getting started and you're kind of weak, let's just be honest, you haven't built the strength yet. There's only so much you can move around. And, you help your family move, from one house to another, you pick up your kids, like you carry things that have some load anyway on a daily basis, and you're probably doing them with pretty bad form in those cases. So at least when you're in a gym with like a fixed set of equipment that's symmetrical sitting in front of you, chances are you're going to be a little more careful. But as far as working with a coach, if you can find a good trainer for 1 or 2 sessions, that's a minimum. You don't even have to have someone there working out with you every time. Just have them fix your form and make it happen.
Just giving you the solid foundation from which to work and keep you safe is huge.
Yeah, it's huge. When I started squatting properly, I'll say, I screwed it up for about 2 months, and I was doing everything wrong. And I thought I was doing right because I was watching videos. Reading books, even posting my videos online and saying, hey, can you give me a form check? And there's something about having a person standing with you, or at least a very good professional who can watch your video online and like be very specific, who just says, no, you got to fix this. Let's do it again. Oh, now it all clicks into place. I mean, I saw a guy here in Connecticut for 1 day and he fixed 2 of my lifts, for life, like the things that I learned in one session. So definitely don't be stingy when it comes to your health and when it comes to your form.
Yeah, because you could be spending a lot more and not just monetarily in the end, in the long run. So, okay. Well, all right. So you go on this fitness journey. Everything is starting to fall into place. You're looking good, feeling good. Everything's perfect. What made you decide to go into this, start your own coaching practice full time? And are you still working as an engineer? Is this a side gig? Because how did that come about? Especially a young father with 2 young kids, you got a family to support. How did that transition occur?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment it's a big side hustle. So it's a growing side hustle, just because I don't want to take unnecessary risk. Right. So I want to have the income to support building the business. And what I like to tell clients is a few things. First, I don't take unnecessary risks out of desperation to make money. Right. I'm in this for the long haul. And then secondly, my engineering career has given me a lot of opportunity to manage and lead and coach people. And a lot of those skills are extremely valuable and transferable to what I do. So what was the question, Cheryl?
Okay. So we'll backtrack just a little bit more. Then that
Yes.
was, you actually did answer the question. So, but when did you decide, okay, I'm not doing this just for myself. I'm doing this. I want to help other people.
People have been telling me for years, including my own father and cousins and friends. They're like, you really love this whole fitness thing. Why don't you do something like professionally about it? I'm like, no, I have a job. I'm not going to do that. So when I started my podcast in late 2021, that was a passion project, had no thoughts of getting into the business. And it wasn't long after I started it that I decided to have my first interview with somebody I knew. She was a power lifter. Also a coworker of mine, and she was a competitive powerlifter here in Connecticut. I think she came in second in the USPA for her weight class, and she only came in second because she was tied, and the other girl had a slightly lighter weight, and so she kind of got notched into second place. So anyway, so I asked her to be on the show, or she asked to be on, or whatever. I don't even remember the story. These things change over time. And preparing for the show, because we were a little nervous about it, she listened to my podcast and she sent me a bunch of voicemails unsolicited to say, hey, I listened to your show and I binged all the episodes. It was like 15 episodes at the time. And she said, I binged the episodes. She's like, I can't believe like everything I've been doing for years with my coaches, with my nutrition coach, with my powerlifting coach, I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't understand it. And now I do. I was like,
Mm.
oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm just trying to share what I learned on my own, not on my own. I had coaches too, but
Right.
combination of things. And I didn't realize it would actually be impacting people like this. So I said, okay, that's cool. I didn't think too much of it. I thanked her. She came on the show. And then after the recording, we had a long, like a half-hour chat. And she's like, my contract is actually coming up soon. I'm looking for a new coach. Is that something you would think of doing? I said, I wasn't, I hadn't, but now let me look into it. And I looked into certification, education, blah, blah, blah. I decided, let me give it a shot. And so
Mhm.
I got certified, and part of my certification was to work with at least 2 clients for free for 12 weeks. And I
Mhm.
found 8 clients, including her, to work with for 12
Mhm.
weeks, which helped me refine the process. But that's how I got into it. It kind of like I fell into it. And then
Mhm.
once I did, I realized that what I was sharing on the podcast was a similar type of education I could share with my clients, so that when they start with me to the point they end with me, I want them to be at least as educated as I am, if that's possible. I mean, I
Mhm.
spend a lot of time learning this stuff, but I want them to have the skills, because this
Right.
is more than coaching. This is more than getting a quick fix. This is really up leveling your skills so that you have that confidence, and maybe they'll tell 5 other people about it or more, and make that huge impact in people's life.
So actually, you started the podcast before you started your coaching
Yes.
practice. Now,
Yes.
I find this really fascinating. I
Hmm.
find so many things fascinating because there's so many contradictions and paradoxes and stuff. You actually started a podcast, which is not an easy thing to do, but at least you
Hmm.
had the techno brain and the engineering brain, but you were terrified of public speaking. So what makes somebody who is terrified of public speaking say, I think I'm going to start a podcast? Or was it less frightening because you weren't facing an audience, that there was a little bit more distance because there was a screen between you and your listeners?
Sure. And you and I talked before we recorded that I've been in Toastmasters for
Mhm.
about 12 years, which is a public speaking nonprofit for anybody who's
Mhm.
interested in becoming a better speaker. I joined that in 2011. So that was
Oh,
now
okay.
12 years ago. Yeah, I think maybe that's where it comes from. So I had all that time to get over my fear and
Mhm.
practice speaking, and even competitive, speak competitively at speech contests. And yet still, podcasting is a different skill in its own way. And when I go back and listen to my first 10 episodes, I'm embarrassed. Like I'm sure many of us are when we hear ourselves. And because, I was kind of talking like this, and the whole thing, I can be my worst critic. But so a few things come to mind when you mentioned the contradiction. One is that the Toastmasters, there was a project for Toastmasters called Create a Podcast. Okay. And I decided to do that one. And I said, let me combine it with all this stuff that I've learned and my personal transformation. And I mapped out the first 10 episodes, kind of like a series of
Mhm.
nutrition and training.
Mhm.
Actually, it was mostly training focused. And then I just took messy action and put it out there. All right. And I'm a huge fan of messy action. Just do it. Just do it. Because at the end of the day, those episodes still get referenced. I mean, the
Mhm.
training that I did yesterday, I was talking with the people attending in the Q&A, and I said, and somebody asked about, well, how do I get started picking a training program? And I said, well, I've talked about it many times. You can go check out this video I did last time. And another person wrote in a link to my second episode. And I'm like, what's this link? I said, oh, where I talked about how to pick a strength training program. And that was episode 2, which I want to like bury in my subconscious.
I know.
And I'm like, but she found it helpful and she's sharing it. I'm like, look, it still has that, what do they call it? Evergreen, it still has
Right.
that impact and value. And so for
It's
people
still
listening, it's like,
relevant
it's
information. It's
relevant.
relevant.
It's relevant. And yeah, who cares if I sounded this or that? I don't care. Podcasts are like that. They're very authentic, and it's
Mhm.
information at the end of the day that matters.
Okay, I am really going to I am I am so enthralled with those 2 words, messy action.
Yes.
I mean, I think that describes it perfectly. And I took quite a few workshops and boot camps with, there's a trainer in town, a business coach in town, who used to say, don't wait until it's, good or perfect, blah, 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 blah. Just go out and do it. And of course, all of us sitting there going, oh, no, I can't do that. And he said, look, if somebody says to you that, your video is crap, and it's like, well, my crappy video is better than the one that you don't have, or my crappy episode is better than the one you never did. So it's just, and then there was another coach in town. He was a speaking coach. And he used to say, you don't have to be good to start, but you have to start to get good.
Yeah.
To be good. I thought, yeah, you do. You have to just take that leap of faith and just go there.
Oh, there's so many themes like this time and again when you see successful people. You know, Alex Hormozy, right? Everybody's hearing him these days, big marketing guy, sales guy, and he had a quote that said, "It only takes about 20 hours of good effort, or 20 hours of effort to get good enough at something, but most people delay the first hour for years. Like they delay for years taking that first hour, right?" Another one is a quote by Epictetus, if I could remember it. When are you going to demand the best for yourself? And it's maybe that's not quite apropos, but just the idea is get started, just do it. I don't care what it is.
You're never too old to start something. That's another theme that, you mentioned the two of us have in common, that don't wait. What are you waiting for? I mean, because time is always going to pass.
Yeah.
So if you don't start now, when?
And I love giving out tough love, by the way. And so people, when they reach out to me and they're like, I'm so overwhelmed. There's so many options. I have this equipment. What do I do at the gym? What do I do? And I said, let's just take a breath. Like, what do you have? Here's one thing you could do. Why don't you just do that? Just jump in. Don't worry about it. Go do it. And I'm very direct about it nowadays. Like I used to kind of ask a million questions and I'm like, no, they just kind of need somebody to give them a little boost and they're going to be good.
Well, and to clear away all of the junk, because when you are looking at all of this equipment and you've read all of these books and you've watched all these videos, it is overwhelming and you don't know where to start. And again, that's a really good place where you can get injured and you can sabotage yourself and then say, hey, I just give up. I'm going to accept that this is the way I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
I like keeping things simple. I really do. Going back to my comment about being efficient and lazy, I can think of many clients, and I'll think of one in particular who started not long ago, where she was going to the gym 6 or 7 days a week, hiking, thousands of steps a day. She had a job as on her feet. She was eating a fairly restrictive diet. And what did we do? We cut out all the cardio. We lowered her days in the gym to 3 days a week. We lowered the movements, so 3 movements, a lot of rest. And all of a sudden, sleep went up, stress went down, hormones got better. Like you just see this time and again, people are doing too much and making it too complicated. And less is not always, or less is often more, right?
Yeah, I have, I'm a dancer and I take alternative dance styles as well as, ballet. And in one of my classes, one of the instructors for the warm up is always doing a warm up that takes like 45 minutes long. By that time, class is half over. And every single time it's movement activities, exercises that are really difficult and challenging, and it's almost like do as many as you can and then we'll move on to the next thing, and it's just almost like whoa, too much coffee for you. And if she would narrow it down and just have a few things, concentrate on the correct technique, doing them with mindfulness, and just sticking to a few things, I think it would be a lot more effective.
It would be, no doubt. I think it would be. Most people are just not training hard enough because they're just trying to do too much. Right? You can spend a half hour in the gym 3 days a week, and if you're doing it the right way, get massive progress. It's easy. And I see this on a microcosm when someone has been injured and now has to go through rehab, and you see how quickly the strength comes back. And you can't do very much, but when you do something, it has a big outcome. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Same thing with nutrition. I know we didn't even get into nutrition, but again, not overcomplicating things, giving yourself freedom to choose what you want and keeping it simple. It's my mantra.
Absolutely. I love simplicity, especially nutrition is another thing. Now let's go back. I want to talk about, what is it? Oh yes, the skepticism.
Yes.
And I love that your podcast is basically, focuses or geared toward the skeptics of the fitness industry. And I think there is a fair amount of skepticism. I know I'm very skeptic of it, through some of my personal experiences and through some of the experiences that I've had with clients who have failed in the fitness industry as clients. And then the one thing that just makes my head explode every New Year's, I have to prepare myself because I know I'm going to see this. Every health club that I drive by, new year, new you.
Promotion.
It's like, what's wrong with the old one, and it's all these promises and, you have to do all these things and sign this contract and get into the gym. And then of course, the nutrition end of it, I actually had a client who was, she started spinning she'd left me,
Mhm.
we'd cleared up, some of her injuries. And so she's went to a spin class and she was really dedicated to this, did it 3 times a week. Well, she came to me several months later and told me that she was gaining weight.
Mhm.
And that, she thought maybe it wasn't menopausal, was it this, was it that? And she explained what she was doing in the spin class and how often she went and how hard they worked. And so as I questioned her a little bit more, she said, well, at the end of class, that the instructor would always recommend that, we refuel ourselves and replenish what we lost through some of the drinks that they have there at the club, the
Oh,
drinks
okay.
and the protein bars and the fitness bars and stuff. So I asked her to bring me a Fit bar the next time she came. And I'm looking at the calorie count, the sugar count,
Sure. Yeah.
and I looked at her and I says, "You're putting in more calories than you burned."
Oh yeah. That's a losing proposition to try to eat back your exercise. It's not what
Yeah,
we do.
yeah, that's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into nutrition, if that's where this is
Okay,
leading to.
let's go ahead and open up that can of worms because nutrition is so confusing. And I even said in my first book, if you want to, really get confused, go to a bookstore and go to the aisle on nutrition.
Mhm.
And it is all over the place. Everybody's an expert, everybody has the perfect answer, and they're
Yeah.
all different.
It's so challenging, right? Because tying this into the last question that I realized I didn't totally answer about skepticism. Uh, this is what I do. I don't know if it's a form of ADD or something, but I get distracted, and my wife knows this about me. I'm like,
No,
honey, you just have to get my attention.
I think it's just Mr. Engineer Head. One of my sisters is married to an engineer, and that's what she calls it, Mr. Engineer Head.
You know what happens? My mind starts running off in a direction on like the last thing you said, and then it just can't find its way back. So the skepticism, so it's the same idea though, that there's so much information out there. How do you make sense of it all? And if you think the 3 buckets of what everybody desires in life, it's like health, wealth, relationships, right? And so we always have this level of a high level of need in these areas, and health is a big one, right? Everybody struggles with it, every single person. And so anything that comes along that seems like the magic fix, the formula, the whatever, we're going to glom to it. Now, do I have the answer as to how you suss that out from the good data? Only to say that you want to find the people who are telling you that information who you actually can trust. And that's where the challenge, it's like, it's hard to tell that the information is correct unless you start applying the skepticism and like understanding the research and, tying all the puzzle pieces together and making sure they all fit together. Like the theory all works. And these things over here are fringe. But even people on like Instagram that you might think you trust because they seem legitimate, it's almost like you really want to get to know them and you really want to talk to people who follow them and so on and get to that point. That's the best I can say as far as like sussing it out. Like for me, I don't tell people on my podcast, just buy my stuff. It's like, reach out to me, go in our community, ask questions. We're going to get you some answers. You're going to try those things. If they work, then you kind of know that we're giving you some good information. I'm not going to hide it behind a secret wall of like, buy my program and then you'll get the secret to XYZ.
Right.
So in the nutrition world, it gets even more complicated because there are diets sound easy and they're sexy and easy, right? Diets are sexy and easy because they show you this easy result that comes from a very simple set of rules. And the sinister thing about it is that makes them more restrictive than anything else. The fact that you have these rules, the fact that you have good and bad foods to choose from are the things that actually make them restrictive, because now anything outside of that forces you to make a moral choice. So if you're on carnivore, let's say it's a nice extreme diet, you go and eat an apple. Oh, what am I doing to myself here? This is not in the diet. Apple's not in the diet. And all of a sudden, just everything's going to blow up. My insulin's going to spike. I'm going to have too much sugar. Who knows what else is going to go wrong because that's not the diet, right? And it strains your conscience. And evidence backs this up. So the evidence backs this up, and it shows us that a rigid diet or a meal plan or anything where it's restrictive, like you have to eat this, causes you to eventually want to binge because you just don't like following rules. Humans like to rebel, right? And you crave things. Whereas a flexible diet where you have targets, you have goals, it might be calories, it might be macros, it might be protein, but then you can choose whatever you want to eat to fit that. Even if it is a a high sugar protein bar, which chances are it's not going to fit in there too well. It's going to take up too much of one of those blocks. That's the freedom that allows you to stick to it, that allows you to manage weight regain or weight loss or weight regain, and prevents disordered eating. Disordered eating actually comes from rigid diets. It doesn't come from calorie counting and tracking and things like that. We all have it backward. So to simplify nutrition, when I work with clients, I just teach them the basics of setting targets, tracking for awareness, and choosing whatever you want to eat and listening to your body. When you combine all of those things, you get the feedback for you on what works, and that is sustainable. And that's the goal here.
Especially the listening to your body part. I really love that. Because a lot of people don't. They wonder why they feel terrible all the time. And then it's like, well, what did you eat?
Yeah.
Oh, French fries and, McDonald's and all that kind of stuff. And you just can't do that. But it's okay to have the flexibility to have a little bit of it if you want sometimes.
Yes. And you will find if you track, for example, your digestion. So there's just, I track like 7 metrics of my clients, but if that sounds overwhelming, you can track the things that are important to you. So digestion is important for a lot of people, especially as we get older, especially women. There's a lot of digestive issues going on. Hunger, maybe another thing you track, right? And then I like to track sleep, stress, energy, all these other things, but really just pick 2 or 3 things that are important to you right now and track them once a week or every day if you'd like, right? Journal, put it in a note app in your phone, and just on a scale of 1 to 10, what was it? What was your digestion this week? And if it's an 8, 9, 10 every week, you're fine, right? But if it starts to go down, or if one week it drops, I want you to align that with what you did with your choices. Because at the end of the day, it's whatever choices you made. It might have been the fast food. It might have been eating late at night, right? It might have been eating too much fat and normally you have more protein, whatever. Maybe it's an intolerance you have. So when we talk about listening to your body, it's not in isolation of other things. In other words, you don't just eat indiscriminately, listen to your body and make changes. You aim for a goal, you track, you understand what you're eating and how much you're eating. You understand the quality and the calorie density. And then now that information you compare to how you feel. Because then, even if you do have to, for example, lose fat and go in a calorie deficit, if I'm hungry every week, how can I tweak it where I'm less hungry? Maybe I don't have enough fiber. Maybe I don't have enough fruits and vegetables and so on. So yeah, that's the engineering part of it, is kind of taking all that data, how you feel, and then figuring out what to change.
It's very empowering.
Yes.
Because it puts you in charge of your health and your body, and you're in control. So you don't feel like you're out of control and you just can't get a handle on your health and your fitness.
Yes.
So it really
That's
puts you in
exactly
the driver's seat. There's one other thing I just want to get your comments on.
Sure.
And it's a little bit on a tangent, but not really, because it's still in the realm of nutrition. Let's talk about the food pyramid.
Okay.
And have you seen the new food pyramid that has been put out?
When you say new, are we talking about the plate that's been out, or even a newer one than that?
It's the FDA, the food pyramid, I think that it's fairly recent.
The healthy eating pyramid?
Yep.
The new one, the more complicated one, I don't even pay attention to that stuff, Cheryl. That's why I hardly know about it, because I just, anything the government puts out, I'm just immediately cynical of.
Well, it's like, let's do something different. If that's what they want us to do, I'm going to do the opposite, because in this new food pyramid, and I thought it was a joke when I first saw it. I really did. I thought it was a parody, or, it was a spoof or whatever. And then I saw it on the news later and I thought, really? That the base of the pyramid is now, because it used to be like grains or whatever, breads. Now it is cereals.
Okay.
And like Fruit Loops, Cocoa Puffs, and the cereals are the base of the pyramid, and that they are considered to be healthier and better for you than like a lean chicken or lean beef.
Yeah, I'm looking at, because there was the old food pyramid that I grew up in the 90s, and then it was replaced with My Plate in 2011. So that I'm trying to find the one you're talking about. I don't even pay attention to that, because again, with my clients, we don't do that. We don't bucketize. We don't have, like, you have to eat this much of this food. All of that is restrictive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I get why governments do it, because they have all this data on obesity and they're trying to tie it to like, what is a, healthy diet. Like Mediterranean is always thrown out as like the gold standard. So they're going to make it match. I don't know what it actually accomplishes. I think it's for regulation. It's for cafeterias in schools. It's for all that stuff. That's why
I don't know. I think somebody is actually,
Lobbying.
Pay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
paying
the
them to,
industry.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, for
it's
sure.
definitely the, the cereal industry must have paid a whole heck of a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
money
yeah,
for
yeah.
this,
That's true.
because
That's true.
it was just amazing. So I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to
Yeah.
get your impression on that. So
I don't care about it. That's, I mean, and not an insult to you. It literally is like, if you're listening, you almost shouldn't care about it either. Like,
mhm.
don't listen
Don't
to these
look.
government things
Yeah.
to, it's just like a diet book. Like,
Mhm.
it's you mentioned before, it's about being empowered. You
Mhm.
should be the one creating your meal plan and creating your
Mhm.
pyramid. That's
Mhm.
kind of the way I want to look at it. You create your pyramid,
Mhm.
and I'll tell you, if you're trying to build a bunch of muscle and you're in a surplus, guess what? Carbs, rice, potatoes, all those things are going to be a huge part of your diet. They're going to be, you might be eating 300 or 400 grams of carbs a day. If you're in a
Mhm.
fat loss phase, you might be down to 100, and protein is
Mhm.
dominating. So your pyramid is flipped.
Mhm.
It's it's
Mhm.
it's nonsense.
Well, and it's because we are dynamic individuals. We are
Yeah.
dynamic beings, and things are constantly changing. So you can't be in a restricted, this is what you're going to eat and that's all.
You hit on a really good point, and the term I use is periodization, nutritional
Mm.
periodization. Just like you periodize training, you periodize your nutrition.
Mhm.
The way I love to do it is once a client has gone through that initial phase of whatever that short-term goal is, right? The quick win, maybe it's a little fat loss or something. We want to line up your whole 12-month season with how you're going to eat and how you're going to train.
Mhm.
And the nice natural way to do that is the holidays is where everyone wants to party and eat. So why
Mhm.
not align that with your muscle building phase, and then
Mhm.
align kind of the spring where everything's quiet, you're back to routine,
Mhm.
school's not out, all that. Align that with your fat loss or cut or whatever, if you need that.
Mhm.
And then that sets you into summer when everybody wants to wear less clothes and look great,
Mhm.
right? And then you kind of gradually come back into winter. And over a 12-month period, if you quote unquote diet at all, and again, dieting is loose the way I use it, because the way we like to diet is about the easiest way you can diet possible and get
Mhm.
results. And so it doesn't feel too restrictive. You might end up dieting for like 8 weeks max every year.
Mhm.
You're talking 2 months out of a 12-month period,
Mhm.
and maintain leanness as long as you want. So that's kind of a nice way to live.
Well, that sounds a lot more palatable, if you'll forgive my, pun,
Yeah,
palatable,
I love it.
than than being on a restricted diet constantly.
Exactly. And in fact, you could even have to do what I just talked about. You could get to the point you want to be where you're happy with your physique,
Mhm.
and then just kind of live there
Mhm.
indefinitely, and feel like and actually be eating a lot of calories.
Mhm.
Because again, if you've built muscle, if you're prioritizing things like fiber, fruits, vegetables, things like
Mhm.
that, satiety, protein, etc. If you do all that stuff and listen to your body's
Mhm.
going to have plenty of energy. It's going to feel full. It's going to feel relaxed, low stress, and you're going to look the way you want. Like that's what we want in the end.
So I want to just segue to another topic. How
Sure.
do you deal with injuries? Because, all of us might have, you know, either overworking. I know I did something a little crazy the past couple of days and it was like, oh, feeling a little bit sore. So I took it easy for a day or two and did my routine, what I know kind of gets me back on track. So do you coach your clients how to be able to work out, of course, as safely as possible, but
Mhm.
inevitably you might get an injury or something happen. And how do you help clients work through that?
Sure. So I've personally gone through injuries myself as well. Not
Mhm.
only tendonitis and use injuries, but I've had back surgery,
Oh,
appendicitis, and I've had
wow.
rotator cuff surgery. Right. And I'm not a physical therapist, so that's the
Mhm.
disclosure number one. And so what I generally do is, if you're working with a physical therapist for rehab, you're going to listen to them.
Mhm.
I can definitely refer people also to lifters who are physical therapists who have
Mhm.
advice. But I can have some general protocols that I'll give people. Like if you have tendonitis, golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, something like
Mhm.
that, I definitely know some good protocols that
Mhm.
involve using the tissue and working out and not
Mhm.
just sitting on your butt. That will help you heal. At the end of the day, using tissue generally is better than not.
Mhm.
Getting blood flow is better than not. And if you
Mhm.
can't use a limb, for example, like I couldn't use my left arm for several weeks after rotator cuff surgery, you can still lift with the other 3 limbs. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't, you could still walk, like usually, I mean, unless you have again, lower body thing,
Right.
there's always something you can do.
Mhm.
I interviewed a man, Kevin McShann. He has a disability that confines him to a wheelchair. And he told me how excited he was that every day he did his upper body weightlifting. And I'm like, if this guy can do it, anybody can do it. So
Mhm.
that's how I help them. On the nutrition side, it's going to depend. Generally, you don't want to be dieting after you're injured,
Mhm.
because your body needs all that fuel for energy. So just general rule of thumb, if you kind of stay at maintenance, at least it's going to be more faster recovery.
Mhm. Okay. So, I know how old you are. I won't tell the audience, but where do you see yourself, let's just say in 20 years?
In 20 years, I want to be stronger than I am now
Mm.
when I'm 42. I'll just say it. I'm 40. I'm going to turn 43 here soon.
Oh, happy
So
birthday. When's your birthday?
thank you. It's in October. Yeah.
Oh,
So
mine's
like
next
6
week.
weeks. Yeah. Oh, happy birthday to you.
Thank you. 67.
Yeah. 67 years young, you know?
Oof. When did that happen? Anyhow,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I had a client who was 65, never lifted a day, and she started lifting with barbells and hasn't stopped. She's gotten stronger every day. So she
That's
started at
amazing.
65 and gets stronger every day.
Let me ask you what motivated her to start lifting?
I think it was her daughter. Her daughter
Okay.
was getting married, and it was one of these things like, I want to be, not just for the wedding, but I want to set a good example for my daughter. And I think she had diabetes as well. She was on some sort of medication for diabetes. And she just wanted to be able to do the things she wanted to do. For example, she had season tickets to football games, and she always had trouble going up the stairs. And then a few months after working together, she's like, I went to the game. It was great. We like hopped up the stairs, no problem. Wasn't even out of breath. Like those things mean so much to us as humans, right? Just
I want to
life.
I want to just do a little public service announcement here too, that when you're doing the weight training, especially in that age group, it's the best thing for building bone density and preventing bone loss and osteoporosis. You do not want that. Just lifting and doing the resistance training is the best thing you could do. So had to say that.
It is. It is. I dare to say you should be doing it. Like just everybody should be, because the frailty you see with old age, the polypharmacy. I know we talked about like pharmaceuticals. It's a huge problem. People start taking one drug, then another, and then you have a fall and you break your bones, and now you get pneumonia. Like it just, and this is a very common story. I see it in my own family. And I see the differences between people who are active and not. So yeah, you're 100% right.
Okay, so now here we are. We're looking at Philip at the age of 62.
Yes.
You want to be stronger than you are now.
I really do, because I didn't start this till like 3 years ago. So to me, I'm still a noob. I think still have a lot of progress. And the problem is you do get injured, you do have issues, you have life come up, but it just slows you down a tad, and then you keep going. You keep resuming from there. It pays to be around others in your community, like who want the same thing or who are striving for the same thing to push you. Especially, as guys, we kind of like, we get on each other, in a fun way that, I'm a lot stronger than you, or you're weak, and this and that. It's a competitive thing. We love it. And so that pushes me. So I know guys in my lifting club who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s posting every day about their deadlifts, their squats, whatever. And it's great. I mean, it's great. It also makes you very resilient, like you said, physically, but even for nutrition, and for your like health issues. So let's say I have a client who's 50 and he's been lifting for like 20 years. I mean, he's a super big, strong guy, but he had like 40 pounds of extra weight to lose. And, we started him walking, and his resting heart rate came down. But the funny thing was, he had blood work done before we started working together. And his doctor said he had the blood work of like, a 35-year-old despite being overweight.
Wow.
And we got it even better than that because of losing a little extra weight, but his muscle mass was protecting him, is my point. Muscle mass protects you. It's a sink for glucose. So it helps with insulin sensitivity. It helps you burn more calories, right? So it's an energy sink. It helps with, like you said, bone density. It supports you in your posture, and it keeps your heart rate down, because now your heart doesn't have to work as hard because your body's supported by the muscle. I can go on and on. But muscle is so good for your health. Yeah.
Everybody loves the looks of good, strong, sleek,
And
flexible
that too.
muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I mean, it
too.
looks good. It feels good. And it really, from a psychological standpoint, for your mental health, you just feel so much better about yourself. You feel like much more in control. That's all I can say. And I'm a control freak. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah. And women, you're not going to get bulky. I want to put that myth to bed, right? You're not going to get bulky. If you want the lean physique, that's where the muscle comes in.
Absolutely. Yep. So one thing, I'm just going to turn the tables and ask you something that you asked me when I was on your show. So what is the one question that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
I should have a prepared answer for this since I always throw it at you. Maybe why I do this.
Mm.
Like why I do that. You did ask me how I got into coaching. And so I'm thinking more, why do I continue to like slave away for hours doing the podcast? As you know, like there's a lot of work behind making it and producing it and so on. And I do it because I didn't have anyone doing it for me for many years. And if anybody can hear one thing that I put out in the world, I don't care if it's a 30-second reel on social or a podcast episode, and have that light bulb moment that everything I knew is now called into question, skepticism. That's what I want. And maybe there's this other thing that actually works, not a secret sauce or not some program I have to buy, literally just education that I can run with and take action on and get results. And then, by the way, reach out back to me and say, what did it work for you or not? And if it didn't, I'll give you something else. That just like lights me up because I've never really done something in my life that I think could impact that many people, even though we touch people every day. You know, it's kind of an exponential thing. So that's why I do it.
Excellent. And even if people listen to those first 10 episodes, I'm guessing they're not as bad as you think they are.
Probably not. They're okay.
Yeah, they're okay. But you do definitely get better at podcasting the more you do it. But yeah, my first 10 episodes, if I listen to them, my ears start to bleed. So I just don't even go there.
And I guess the point is we're focusing on how it sounds, but at the end of the day, I worked really hard to research the information because they were my first episodes. I was like, oh, I got to get this right. And so you know, that's still in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last question for you, because you do have, you're married with 2 little girls.
Yes.
And you have a full-time job as well as your coaching and the podcast, which, as we know, is a lot of work. How do you balance all of that? Because that's an awful lot.
It's a lot. I have to do the 80-20 all the time. I have to cut out, you know, so many things that are just not valuable and ask every day, is this valuable? I've had things that would just sit for weeks and not get done on purpose because they just weren't as important as other things. So that's a really important question. Let me see a few things. First of all, I have to prioritize my family no matter what. So I look at my schedule and I say, where do they fit in? So I give them the time they deserve, you know, whether it's after work or on the weekends. Weekends are sacrosanct for me. Like I've had 1 or 2 podcast episodes where I went on the weekend and I just said, I'm never going to do it again. And so that's one piece of it. What's the number one priority? And the second thing is systems. Like I'm an engineer, so I know how to use software and systems. And guess what? A lot of what takes somebody 5 hours or 10 hours might take me 1. And I pride myself on being able to do that. And if it takes me 5 hours, how can I get it to take 1? Right. Even using whether it's AI or spreadsheets or software or whatever. And then I guess the third piece of that is just having supportive community, right? Like having individuals I can send a text to or video. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me out? They will, and I'll do the same for them. And that extra time it takes to talk to them saves so much later on, keeps me balanced. So that's just 3 ideas. I'm sure I can come with 10 others.
That was great. So thank you, Philip. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I love talking to you. You are absolutely so much fun to talk to. So now, where can the listeners find you? How can they get a hold of you? Give us some of your links, your website link. All of this, of course, is going to be in the show notes, but I really like the guests to be able to verbalize it themselves because it gives it a little bit more of a personal touch.
Sure. Follow my podcast. So you're listening to Cheryl's podcast right now. So go in your app and find Wits and Weights and follow it.
It is a great podcast. Yes. I just want to give you that little plug. He's got some wonderful reviews, tons of reviews, lots of listeners. And as you can tell, fantastic information and awesome guests.
Yeah, thank you. Including Cheryl. Cheryl's a guest on the show. And depending on when these come out, I don't know which order they'll come out, but you want to follow it just to get another dose of Cheryl on that show with a little bit of a different angle, I think. So there's the podcast. You can reach me at Wits and Weights on Instagram. And then go to my website. I actually just came out with something new on my website. It's called a free metabolism assessment. So you can go in there, fill it out. It's very short, and you'll learn about your metabolic flexibility, how much energy you produce. That tells you whether you are like set up for success or not with your diet and exercise, so that we can tweak that. It's free.
Excellent.
So, and that's witsandweights.com.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
I would like to ask you this, but I think I know what the answer would be. Do you have a book in the future? Do you see yourself writing a book about all of this?
I'm not going to rule it out. Yeah,
Okay,
not
I
going to rule
just
it out.
wondered.
You,
Okay.
you'd get that book?
Oh, of course I would get that book.
Yeah, I haven't even thought too much about it, but it's crossed my mind. Yeah,
Yeah, because well, at this point in your life, you're a little busy. But I can see that when, things start, at that 62, you hit that magic age, maybe, then it'll be time. I don't
for
know.
sure, for sure. I could see me. It'd be if I chose to do it, it would consume me. I know how these things go, so
Yes. Oh, it would
I'll
definitely would
I'll put
consume
it
you.
on the list for sure.
And when you do, you have to let me know so I can, number
Okay,
one, buy the book. Number two, have you back on the show so you could talk about it and promote it.
challenge accepted. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Well, thanks again, Philip. Loved having you on the show.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. I had so much fun.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you share this episode with everybody you know that's so full of fantastic information, and just get rid of the diets and do the intelligent, sensible thing. Check out Philip's website, take the metabolism quiz, check out his social media, his Facebook page. I haven't looked at your Instagram yet. I know I'm following you, but on the Facebook page, he's got so much incredible information that you can learn an awful lot. And some of the videos are really funny, especially the one with the dog attacking the scale.
There we
And
go.
remember,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. And remember to listen to your body, and your health and wealth is, your health is your wealth. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.